So for this example, we're going to take a quadratic equation and we're going to solve it. See how can we find out those two solutions for x. The quadratic is going to have those two roots of the equation. Again, we know it's a quadratic because its highest power is 2, and it works down from its highest power 2 down to a power of 1 and down to a power of 0, and it equals 0. So there are a couple of giveaways that we have for the quadratic that we discussed before. Now to solve it, we're going to go with our method called the big X method. Now it's a form of grouping. Okay, so it's how you find the groups of this equation, which isn't, overly obvious. And it's a useful method that we use to solve the big X, and it's usually our starting point, our starting method to try to see if it will solve the equation. So to do this, as it says, we draw a big X like this, and then we follow these steps. So step 1, work vertically, step 2, diagonally, then 3, horizontally. And we're using the X to help us. So let's see what this means. So work vertically. This is what we're going to do first. So you start over here, do 3x squared, and you work vertically down. You say what two numbers multiplied together will give us 3x squared? Well, we can start by 3x times x will give us 3x squared. That's us working along the vertical. Again, we work along the vertical. What two numbers multiplied together will give us 8? Well, let's look at 4 and 2. Okay, now I know we could use 8 and 1, but we'll see why this is important, and we'll see why I've wrote it in this orientation for a minute. So we've done the verticals, okay, check. Now work along the diagonal. Now the diagonal is important because we need this centre point to match our 10x. And watch what I mean by that. We work along the diagonal, so 3x times 2 will give us 6x, and then you add it to this diagonal. X times 4x. X times 4 is 4x. So you have 6x plus 4x gives us our 10x. Now if we had had this in the other orientation, we wouldn't have got 10x once we work along the diagonal. So that's why the orientation is important. And again, if there had been some minus terms in here, they would have been important to which one gets the minus. But a bit of practice, you get that. So we've got the diagonal. And then horizontal. We work along horizontally along the x. And that's how we write our answers down. So we get 3x plus 4 times x plus 2 equals 0. And that's our two groups for this equation. So that's how we group it. That's how we factorize the equation. We've done that. Now let's solve it. And what you do is you just let your two groups equal 0. Yeah. And the other group, x plus 2 equals 0. Small little manipulation here. Get 3x equals minus 4. So then x will equal minus 4 divided by 3. And your other answer, again a little bit of manipulation there, x equals minus 2. And that's how we solve it. We found our two values of x for this equation. So we've done the horizontal. So again, that's how we get the groups. Now if we were just given an expression, so no equal sign, you could factorize it and group it using the big X, and then you'd stop there. But seeing that we have an equal sign, we have an equation, we can go and solve it then. We just let both these terms equal 0 and we get our two answers. Remember, we get two answers for a quadratic, two roots. And that's how you do it. So the big X, you follow it along the X. Hopefully that's a method that you can use that'll work for you and that you'll find easy to follow. There's other methods out there. That's the one I teach. And hopefully that makes sense to you. So this is our starting point. Any quadratic we get, we'll start and try and solve using the big X. In the next video, we'll look at, well, what happens if, the products here are too, large to figure out, or if we can actually solve it using the big X. What do we do then? So we'll pick that up in the next video.